Everybody who's joining,
Hey,
man.
hey.
We're so glad
You guys hear me out there? All right.
Yes.
I seem to disappear into the netherworld. Woohoo! It's like a cartoon character. Marek Steakhouse. All right. So here behind the transparent walls of our interwebs, your questions are not only welcome, but they are appreciated and encouraged. So no matter whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you are, post them and we'll do our best to answer them. Today we have a double headliner for you. In this corner, weighing in with credits from Mystikal, Lisa M., Maya Mojito Light, Pinto Picasso, Sheila King is the cyclone of reggaeton. Cheskob, engineer, producer, and educator. Woohoo! My brother. And in the opposite corner, a man who maintains the lowest profile in the industry, with credits from Justin Timberlake, Timbaland, Missy Elliott, Beyoncé, Kirk Franklin, Jay-Z, and even the Trolls movie, the humblest engineer on the planet, the paramour of pop, Chris Godbey, engineer extraordinaire. Welcome aboard, my brothers. Woo!
Thank you for that.
First of all, it's Friday, so unleash your beverage of choice, please.
It's 2:30 somewhere.
This is what happens when you hang with Marek already.
All right. Okay.
Nice.
Well, my first question for you gentlemen is how the hell did we get here? Like, how do you guys know each other, and how did that all come about?
Well, we met through you, man.
We just have a very dear mutual friend who's badass.
Yeah.
And that's how we got to create a very cool relationship here, man. I'm always crashing his studio. I love it here. It's a very nice spot.
No, we've been good friends
Tell
since
us
that one event. So yeah.
Nice. I love it. That was that at NAMM, or was that at the Dallas event we did over at Alex Gerst's place, Empire Recording Studios?
Empire.
At Empire, right on. Awesome. Cool, man. Well, I know that Chris, you and I met because somehow I convinced you to be a beta tester for the Convert AD Plus. How did that? Do you remember how that came about?
Yeah, I got the Convert 2 for the G to A portion, and I had always, I was always wondering when Dangerous was going to do the A to D part, and you said, well, it just so happens. Let me send it to you. I begrudgingly sent you that unit back and then promptly bought one when it was on open.
That's right. I remember because you're like, dude, I can't spring for it. I'm going to send it back to you. I'm like, okay, no problem. And then I got this email. Hey, man, do you still have that? Because they were in beta still.
No, yeah, you had told me that I would have to send that one back, even if I could buy it. Like, that one had to go somewhere else. Because it was still a couple more weeks before it was actually released, right?
At least. Yeah, at least a few more weeks. Yeah, Chris Tabron had a similar problem. He refused to send his back, and so he bought one when it was finally ready off the line, but he didn't want to give it up until he compared the two to make sure that there wasn't, like, we hadn't cheaped out on the production one or something, so I'm like, dude, your USB jack doesn't even work yet. We haven't solved that yet when we send it to you. So cool. And then Cheskob, you and I met, I think you called me or something, right? About Convert 8s or something. What was it?
It was through Luca, my friend Luca Pretolesi.
That's right.
Yeah. Luca, I was asking him some things about equipment and whatnot. And he's like, no, man, you know what? Stand by. You're going to get a call. Pick it up soon. I'm like, okay. I mean, shoot, this is serious the way he rolls. And then it's you. And then we got to, start it off the phone, man, and we really kicked it right off the bat. It's incredible. Fell in love with you, your personality, and then the dangerous stuff was mind-blowing. And I was like, wow, they hooked me, man.
Love it. All right. So tell us, great. Thank you. And I'm glad you guys could sort it out to do this. It was an extra special treat to have both of you aboard. So tell us a little bit about the spot you're in today. About this is Chris Godbey's secret hideout,
Oh
right?
yeah, this is actually my pool house turned audio laboratory. I don't just keep work-related things out here. I have a collection of analog synths and anything that makes a noise or things that I collect. That's my little sweet spot right there.
Yep.
I have so many vines growing on the outside of my house. It looks kind of crazy from the outside. It looks like the plants are just engulfing my building, but I love it.
How does that deal with like sound control, diffusion versus absorption? You know, the vines.
I'm doing the best that I can. There's, you know, as long as you know what you're up against, you can kind of work with anything. As long as you're keeping your reflections down and you know where the issues are, you can kind of work through almost anything. So I think it sounds pretty great out here.
It does.
The
It does.
work that I've done. It's not the prettiest thing, but I got.
No, it's pretty cool. It's vibey.
It's vibey. It's
Chris
vibey.
is always too
I think it
humble.
looks awesome.
Like, yeah. When I came in here, I was like, "Whoa, what is this?" Like, man, a whole different level. Love it. Very cool vibe. It's sounding really cool.
Yeah,
Excellent. Cool. Well, I want to, because we're going to go into some conversations about gear, and I want to make sure that anybody who's watching sort of understands what we're talking about. So I thought it might make sense to start off with the signal flow. So we could look at Cheskob's signal flow, see what he's got going on in his space, and then we can look at Chris. We were going to look at your sort of the outboard, how you get out of your. I mean, both things are hybrid, right? So how do we get out of the digital box and get into analog love festival? So let's have a look at the Cheskobs, and you can kind of walk us through it, dude.
Yeah. So I go right out of my Pro Tools DAW. I'm on an HD system, and I'm using the 192s to pretty much send signal out into the convert 8s. And this has been like the biggest game changer for me. I've had my hands on a lot of converters, and this one right here is mind blowing. Nothing comes even close. So this is where pretty much summing comes in. So I'm sending exactly 16 channels through the convert 8 into the 2-bus plus, and I'm doing the summing. Now here, the summing, this is where your sound kind of gets very big and open, and you get more extended low end, extended high end, the right amount of width. And a lot of people say, man, that's really why. Well, it is the actual sound. The sound is meant to be very big like that. So it's incredible to mix through it and be able to place your sounds accordingly. So then you actually have the ability to go out to the AD right from the 2-bus plus, and also you can send it out to the actual controller. So then that way you can monitor through the AD, or pretty much monitor without the AD just to hear your mix naked. And then from the controller, I'm using every single output there. I love switching to different monitors. So then through the AD, I go back into Pro Tools, where I'm going to be printing or processing my final mix bus with some plugins before we send it out to mastering. So now to hear what everything is sounding, I'm sending it out to the Convert 2. Now this guy is a game changer because it allows you to really hear or picture. It's actually like three-dimensional, if you will. You can actually see the sounds. And I'm using the Convert 2 just for the monitor. So from the Convert 2, I'm sending it out to the monitor, and that's how I'm able to hear how everything's sounding as a pre-master going through the AD Plus. And it's been a game changer, man. I've gotten so many other gear, and nothing really felt like this system. puts the whole music together. It's more enjoyable to mix through it. It's having like your own console, like a big console, but in your home, in your studio, in your personal workspace. So between the two bus and the AD plus comes in the compressor. Now the compressor, man, this right here was my latest addition, and this has been the most incredible addition to everything. It kind of glues everything together. And if you guys are aware, the really high-end compressors create an incredible depth. When you're listening to your mixes on a low level, just inserting this compressor using the insert on the 2 bus plus, you can actually engage the 2 bus plus as a little button that says engage the insert. Once you insert or you engage that insert with the 2 bus plus, I'm sorry, with the dangerous compressor, your mix all of a sudden has a nice glue, but also it's a transparent, but it's a fidelity thing, it's a depth thing. You can see your stuff from front to back. When you have the right amount of compression and you are really just gluing it, you can smack it if you want. This thing is a smacker. This thing can really pretty much simulate any kind of mix bus compressor out there. So whatever setting you set it to, you can achieve any one of those sounds and result and have the same kind of results. Now, the cool thing that I'm doing with the compressor is that I'm engaging the external sidechain. And the way that works is within Pro Tools, I'm actually sending to all those 16 channels that go out into the Convert 8s. I'm sending that as an aux to a single channel, and then that channel is being sent out through a different AD and D to A converter so that it can actually get into the compressor sidechain input on the back of the unit. Why am I doing this? Because then I am able to pretty much leave a setting that works for me on every mix. And with that one fader, using the external sidechain, I'm able to push the fader up if I want to compress more, or lower the fader if I want to compress less. And where it gets really crazy and magical is when you start applying EQ and different processors to that one channel. And then you can open up more of that top end if you want the compressor to react differently to the top end or the low end or the mid. Then you can just make it a part of the sound for that particular mix. And it is incredible. I mean, that alone is like having, again, even more so, a whole lot more compressors for you to use just by EQing the sidechain input in that compressor. It's incredible. It's safe.
Killer. That's pretty comprehensive. If anybody wants to look at that diagram, we'll make sure that we post that on this thread so you can go back and look at it. A big thing to understand that might be blowing some minds is in his Pro Tools HDX rig, he's using the old school artist formerly known as Digidesign digital 192s. Really is just conduits to go to the card, the HDX card, and provide AES in and out, so he can use the outputs for the D to A and the convert 8s. That's what he's using the first one for. The second one, he's using the AES so he can get in and out of the AD plus and the convert 2. So that's just to explain to everybody. Yeah, it's awesome, man.
I'm wrong.
Thanks for.
If you're in it natively, you wouldn't even need the avid. You could just plug those in USB, right?
You could, if you're bypassing the Pro Tools HD system.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why I have the Pro Tools HD system is because, I may want to have some more converters for just inserts. So I use specifically the Con 8, the Converter 8 for summing, and then some other stuff just to call up different inserts of different gear. It's the only way I was able to get it working like that. And it's killer. Yeah.
Yeah, there's your rig, dude.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's nice.
Glory.
I feel like I'm
I've been telling you, you're missing out.
I'm seeing my future right there.
So Chris uses the compact version of what we just went through, that elaborate diagram. He uses the compact version because you're jumping in and out of the box to hit up some of your precious outboard. You want to tell us how you do that on that? You're doing it on Mixdown on your mix bus, right?
I pretty much set mine up like a mastering guy would, where I just use like 2 outs of Pro Tools to go through like a nice, compressor, EQ kind of thing, and then back in. So I'm not doing the summing thing, not from a lack of want by any stretch, but before all this COVID mess, I was traveling quite a bit, so I kind of felt like my mixes needed to live in the box when I was away from here, and so if I was missing my gear, I wasn't just shit out of luck. Like I could still operate to some capacity. But man, looking at your rig, man, I think I need some more stuff.
So this, what we're seeing on the screen there is you're coming out convert 2. That's your D to A. You're going into, you've got back EQ, going into your outboard, and then you're going back in through the 80 plus. That's how you're doing that. Like you're talking about, like sort of like the mastering loop or the mix bus chain.
That's the plug-in on my mix bus. Yes.
The analog plug-in. Awesome.
The analog plug-in.
All right.
It sounds so good too, man.
While
I've asked him. I
talking
said,
about that because. Go ahead.
Okay. Let me just say it, because when I first came here and I saw that rack, I said, man, you gotta let me hear with and without. I need to feel it, please. He quickly went, press a few boom, boom, check this out, boom. So I heard the mix without that chain, and then with it, and I was blown away. I was like, dang.
Like that's all of the difference that I believe summing can make, just with a lot less components.
Yeah.
But I am really wanting to get into summing, because I think one of the arguments for summing is when all of your converters are dedicated to only a handful of sounds, you're able to, squeeze a little more out of something.
Exactly.
Instead of
I know a guy, man. I'll set you up with his phone number. So Chris and Cheskob, I remember when we were hanging out in Dallas last at Alex's room, you had just gone over to Chris's place and he was playing you a Beyonce mix, and he was running it through the AD plus, and he was doing some things that you were like, wait a minute, why are you doing that? Like, I think he was pushing it hard or something, and you guys want to that's an interesting story.
I'll never forget, this is Beyonce's latest album, right, that she released. It got nominated, by the way. Congratulations. My man got a nomination.
Shout out Stu.
Stu White. So I was checking out the mix. I said, hey, man, play me the mix. And I always have like this obsession, like, hey man, can I hear the rough? Let me see where they left it, and let me see what you took and where you placed it and whatnot. So we heard the before and after, and I was blown away. And it was sounding to me like the first thing, I don't know if you remember, I said, man, that depth is incredible. I love it. It sounds analog. It doesn't sound like a digital mix where it's a flat wall. No, there's some dimension to it. And then I started playing around with his rack, and then I started disengaging. And then I noticed the moment that he decided to really push and clip that converter, the AD plus. So here on the picture, you guys see there is a button right there, that little red button that says the clip guard. So that will prevent for any clipping to happen in the digital realm once you go. once you go back in. I mean, you can't hit zero.
It just keeps the red light on.
Okay.
From my understanding, reading the manual, it still is clicking.
Well, yeah, no, that I mean, yeah,
It's just
that's
not-
what it's not hitting the red.
It's not passing that overload light down
Right, right.
Um,
That's what I meant to
so-
say. It is clipping.
the line. You still gotta listen for it and don't overdo it. A little dab will do ya, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I mean, it's better than putting L2 on everything.
No, that's true. That's true. But the crazy thing, though, Marek, that I remember is the depth. Usually when you are, because I mean, I've had the burls, I've had other converters where you really got to push it, and they're meant for that. And usually when you are clipping per se, you are somewhat, reducing your dynamic range a little bit, and you're kind of squashing it just a bit. So I just never thought that you would actually create this depth from it. And now thinking back, it makes sense because if you are taking care of those peaks, right? So all of a sudden now you're getting a nice shaved peaks, and then you're getting the meat of the mix to really come out. And that just felt incredible to me. And I said, man, that is genius. I never thought to really push it. I told him, thank you, man. Let me go home and let me play with this. And I got to tell you, every mix ever since is hitting that freaking red
A little hotter
LED.
each one, right? The
It
next
is
one, you try a little more.
incredible. And I texted all my friends. I said, yo, guys, did you know the 80 Plus is meant to be pushed? Try it. Check it out. It's crazy. One night. And, man, it's been a great discovery. Thank you for that, man. That was
I mean, it's kind of like taking
Well,
another
yeah,
away
well-
from you guys. But, I mean,
true.
it needs to be loud.
True. True.
Yeah, Lavery Gold kind of put that idea on the map for people. That's where it came from originally, as far as I know. And we just, we know about headroom, obviously, so we just wanted to build headroom into the box so that if you wanted to, you could, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. And then you were also talking about using the transformer and the circuit in there as well. So
Yeah, I
how do you
I put that on 2, I think, just for a little bit of flavor, but it definitely does add a little thing.
Sparkle.
Which, I kind of was on the fence of, well, I want a converter that's clean and sounds natural, and then I started messing with that, and I was like, I kind of don't. I kind of want a converter to do something where it adds a little something, because if I want clean, I can just stay in the box.
True. What is
well,
true?
you can do
He was like,
it allows you to do both, so you can choose if you want to or not, depending on the track. But then that interesting thing that we came across, right, with one of those Justin Timberlake records where that's when you were auditioning it, right? You were mixing that, and then you had to do a recall, and so that's why you were freaking out. You couldn't get that ambience back, right?
yeah.
So you're using those controls, the sonics on that record, and then I see our other friend, Chris, mastering engineer, right? Athens, out of Austin.
Awesome.
He's like, hey, I just want to, say it was a great year. I mastered all these records, and one is the Justin Timberlake record. And he's like, he's got everything dangerous in his rig, so he's using the AD Plus for that also. And then on the tour, my buddy Mike Peacock over at Sweetwater was on the tour with the front of house gentleman, and what's he got in the rig? He's got 2 AD Pluses, one for JT's vocals and one for the master mix. And he's like, yeah, this knob on the AD Plus just makes it sound more like the record. I'm like, yeah, I know the guy that did the record. He used it. And nobody talked to anybody. It just happened magically. Pretty cool. Right on.
I think the 80
All right,
Plus,
so
Marek, if I can say one more thing that I noticed too, using like outboard gear, all of a sudden, compressors, everything that you add to it, the 80 Plus has really made it sound the way it should. Really, the dimension is really big and nice, and it's just been incredible. So it's just a plus to have it, man, for sure.
cool. So, Chris, you were mentioning to me when we were talking earlier in the week. Somehow we got on the subject of like what's happening under C19 these days. What kind of different challenges are you running into? What's your number one complaint about product you get?
The same challenges, but dialed up 100%. So now instead of having a little bit of room sound with your vocals, you've got a lot of room sound with your vocals.
Yes.
People recording on questionable gear with questionable settings, and then they send it to you and they want the fat result. And you're like, wow.
Yeah, it's super hard to get rid of ambience on a track. It's like the old story of, you record a drum kit in a small room. It's always going to be a small room. You can never make it any bigger. So, I mean, I remember, back before we had flush toilets and running water, telling these voiceover guys on a budget in the 90s, like, hey, man, at least do the voiceover in the closet with all your clothing. And then this guy, the customer, come back to me. He's like, man, my roommate thinks I'm insane. He comes home and I'm in the closet talking to myself, with the door closed. But you're right, man. It sounds better for the voiceover.
Yeah, right. Keep those reflections down. Just like I said, you're not going to get perfection, but if you know what you're up against and you take a little bit of precaution and planning, you can make it work. But
have you ever had to record somebody traveling in a hotel room?
Of course.
And what have you done that can help you deal with that stuff when recording?
Quilts, taking the comforter. If you take one of those,
the mattress, move it
I
around.
don't have one here, but like one of the taller mic stands,
okay,
with the boom arm,
right?
If you just put that up and put the boom arm like this,
oh, look at that.
You can hang the blanket
nice.
over the mic stand, and you get kind of like one of those.
Nice, very nice. Heck yeah.
So yeah, that works. And then just being really careful about. Then just being really careful about I forget what I was saying.
Yeah, in the hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Being careful about the echo.
There's a time and a place to have a really badass microphone, but sometimes they just do more harm than good in those situations. So that's when you get out like an SM7 or something like that. You know the room is shit, so
yeah.
Let's not exacerbate the situation.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Man. That makes sense.
Try to make the room go away as best you can. Yep. So we got a couple questions rolling in here. So let's do a little Q&A here. We've got Isaac B asks, how do you treat your home studios, and do you always take your mix to the big studios to make sure it sounds better?
The short answer is no, not anymore. But when I do get to a big studio, the stuff that I've been working on, I do kind of want to hear it and play it and see what it sounds like. But I don't feel like I'm really wanting for much in my room. I mean, I've got really great monitors, and I feel like it sounds pretty good here. So
yeah. It's because you got such a good room, but I figure if somebody is working from home and is still kind of adjusting your ears to your monitors and whatnot, I feel like you, and I've preached about this many times, but having a listening party of your own and just listen to music constantly there and getting to know your room, how it reacts in the monitors, right? And then, just trust, man. Do your very best with what's coming out. And then as you compare with references, right? We all still use references when you mix, right?
Oh, yeah.
A lot. We all do at any room, at any level. So if you can get close to it and you feel good and it's emotional, it's a good mix, then, hey, man, leave it to the mastering engineer to do the rest. I mean, a mix is never going to be 100% perfect. But those imperfections, that character, that edginess, that's what's going to make the record feel good. So I would just say, as long as, like Chris was saying earlier, taking care of the reflections, of course, is very important, and getting to spend time learning the room and the monitors. That's it. You should be able to do it.
Like even if you can't do it, like I said, just know what you're up against. If you ever like go, I don't know what other software have, but the signal generating, like just pull up the oscillator, play that low subtone, and just start sweeping around and find where you feel like you get bunch or dips.
Yeah, that's good.
I guarantee you, if you're in a little tiny room, you're gonna like run that thing up, and you're gonna hear a big hunt, and you're gonna hear a spot where it disappears.
Yeah. No, but that's good, fellas. Everybody listening, there, man. Use a signal generator. That way, you know what frequency is the problem frequency in your room. That's good.
Yeah, and you can just use one of your synths with a sine wave, because people are like, signal generator. What are you talking about? Just use a synth plug or whatever. Put a sine wave over there, or you could do the math. You can measure 2 times this dimension, right, divided by the speed of sound, and then that's going to be your first room mode. So you could do a tiny bit of math. It's not a hell of a lot. You're only multiplying one number and dividing by another. So most of us musicians can handle it. Pretty straight up.
You can only count to 4, man.
Good question, man. Good question, Isaac. Good question.
Okay, we got another question here from Brian B. And it looks like it's to Cheskob. So when mixing very high track counts, at what point do you think 16 channels of summing is not enough and you need to get to 32 channels of summing?
Well, here's the thing. When the final record is out, there's only going to be 3 most important elements going: your vocal, your little lead melody music element, and your rhythm. So if you have 3 tracks or 300, it's still going to come down to those 3 focal points. So whether you want to really sum 32 channels to have a bigger feel, or 16, or 4, I think it's really more about how you approach the mix and the tactics you use to get the end result. So I mean, you've heard about many of the top mixers too, how they, part of their prep will be, if they got 20 guitars going, they'll mix those into a 2-track, and that's their guitars, and they put that into the mix. So I think that nowadays, simplicity is the key. If you do have a high count of things, yeah, man, just bounce and consolidate and merge things. And remember, there's a focal point, your vocal, and then your rhythm, which is very important, and that one little melody music element that's taking over the record. The rest can go in the back, because if you have too much info, the listener is going to get too distracted. So you gotta have the right focal point. It's got to be a focus mix. So hope that answers right? That answers the question. What do you think?
So one of the things, like Russ Elevato would say, when we've done these kind of things, he always says he's into track reduction, right? So he's like, I get a folder with a box of shit, 200 files that are unnamed, and that's a song. And so I go into the folder and I got to turn it into a session, right? Hopefully they're all consolidated at least, and then start figuring out what's what. Okay, these are vocals. This is whatever, drum parts, whatever. And then he starts doing what he calls track reduction, and he's a real believer in committing, because he doesn't use any plugins, and he barely moved over from analog, barely learned Pro Tools, I don't know, a handful of years ago. So he's all about, okay, I love this drum sound, I'm committing. And he'll just commit whatever it is, a stem or 2 stems to the drums, run it through whatever outboard he wants, and go back into the system, and that's the stem. He'll treat the vocals same way. I love the backups, this is perfect, this is my sound. It goes to the treatment, goes in, and he tries to get the session down to anywhere between 16 and 32 tracks, or 8 and 16 stems. He's pushing to try to get it down into there. So I think that might be a philosophy to follow. But then you've got other people, you know, like Michael James has got 4 two-bus, you know, dangerous summing mixers. So it's just different things. Some people want to be able to pull up, you know, like, okay, whenever I go to output 3 of my rig, that goes through the 1176 or whatever, you know. So they mix like that in that style. So it's just different philosophies for sure. But I would say stuff with high transient and big dynamics are important. So if you got a lot of easy stuff like effects returns, that's not nearly as important as if you've got some serious percussion, or like hip hop, you've got a kick drum and you've got an 808 going, those, you know, and you're building the whole song around that and the vocalist, then those are things you really want to protect, you know, and isolate.
True. Good question, Brian.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Oh, Isaac B's got another question for us. He says, what is the toughest obstacle when mixing? And how about we break that down into a genre a little bit? Like, you're going to talk about reggaeton, Cheskob. So what specifically in that genre, what's the biggest obstacle when you're mixing? And then we can ask Chris on the pop world, a pop record.
Yeah. So a lot of the Latin music right now is heavily fusionized with urban elements, specifically reggaeton. And the thing is that reggaeton has a particular sound that if you depart too far from it, you lose the essence. What's crazy about it is that the actual essence of that sound is a very ugly, harsh sound. So the trick is to pretty much make sure that you have things coming in punchy, right? And make sure that things hit hard. That's the thing. You want records that really hit hard, because the moment you play a reggaeton track, you know, you're wanting to dance. Okay, I'm dancing now, right? So if you treat it too politely, you're not gonna win it, you know. So I think the key, of course, the obstacle is how to make it punchy and how to deal with the harshness. And these are very lo-fi samples that really came from actually sampling those the actual records from Jamaica back in the day. Those were rhythms that were created in that part of the Caribbean, and then little by little infiltrated into Puerto Rico. That's where I was born and raised. That's where I'm from. And when I was walking in Pampers, man, that reggaeton beat was the biggest thing, but it was being sang by Jamaicans. And then Puerto Rico got a hold of it and said, well, let's do our own rap over it. And then it became a very underground sound. It wasn't on the radio. And so it was the kind of music that if you play that, oh my gosh, what? No, heck to the no. So, but little by little, it got very mainstream. People started writing more commercial songs on top of that rhythm. And now, pretty much, if you put any radio station that's Hispanic, you're going to hear that reggaeton beat to it. So in the reggaeton world, man, I think it's cool to use a lot of dynamic EQ. Dynamic EQ, that way you can target specifically around the 3K, 4K, 7K, ugly, harsh sound, and just put a nice little dynamic EQ for that to keep it smooth on that top end. That way your vocal can sit right nice to it. But then lower, you get that punch, you get that gritty sound. So that's kind of like the obstacle and a solution that I've found to it. How about for your way?
Well, it's kind of the same thing, but I'm going to cover another aspect of it. Just like you said, keeping your ears tuned to what you're doing. Because when you're mixing a record for 8 hours, you believe in your mind it sounds a certain way sometimes. And when you leave or something and go take a break and come back and you hit play again, you're like,
True.
I thought it was something that it's not, and then you know, it's like a mind game between your mind and your ears are always at odds.
So how do you deal with that?
I A/B obsessively to things.
A/B?
Yeah, like I think my record's loud and bright, and then I'll pull up whatever flavor of the week, thing, with you know, it's at the same level,
Yeah.
right? And then I play back something else. I'm like, oh wow, that's way brighter and way louder than what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so then it's time for more approaches.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, just I guess to shorten that answer, the struggle is just knowing what you're doing and you know having what you've done actually be what you think it is. And it's not always.
So what kind of technical
Well, I think
solution have you discovered to make it bright but not harsh and give it that polished up and without sounding ugly?
A little bit of kind of top down kind of processing. Like I mixed through all that stuff from the very beginning. So
Oh, true that.
I'll
True
kind
that.
of dial in a little bit of you
Start
know
cleaning.
boom and sparkle
Yeah,
and mix through a process like that.
true.
And
Nice.
it gets me there a little bit quicker. But even
That's
still,
cool.
when I A to B to you know the latest saving mix, it's like
True.
back to the drawing
True,
board.
man.
I like what you said. What you said to me before, Chris, was in the past is how you're always, when you're doing your mixes, you're always listening to stuff that's current. So you don't go back to the same
Yeah.
tracks that you know or whatever. You're listening to something that's right now. And that's one of the nice things about Minor ST or Convert Series or Source or whatever it is you're using, that you know you can be monitoring your DAW and then you just hit the button and you can go through the same D to A and be listening off USB. And so you can be streaming, whether it's Spotify or hopefully people are using Tidal out there, better quality, you know, whatever they're listening to, YouTube, so they can be doing their comparisons. You can stay in the sweet spot because we don't have any recollection. You got 1.5 seconds of mnemonic recall. You know, you ask somebody, you know, hey, repeat this song, and they can sing the melody, hum the melody, they can remember. You say, hey, repeat this this lyric, you know, it rhymes, whatever, they can repeat the words. But you say, what did that sound like? You don't have anything to compare it to. There's nothing to repeat, so it gets lost really quick. So it's just really important to be able to do those quick comparisons.
Yeah.
I listen to a ton of music, so usually when I'll get a song and start mixing it, the roll the decks of songs will kind of come up, and I'll be like, oh, this reminds me of
That's good.
you know X song, and then
Yeah,
I'll just
yeah.
go find
Yeah.
it, play it a little bit, and just see
Good.
if the vibes or
And another one for you, Chris, from Arcadia MM. How do you approach mixing albums and working with deadlines without rushing the process? That's a good question. So how do you approach mixing albums and working with deadlines without rushing the process?
Wow. I don't know. I mean, sometimes you just have to rush the process. Like, a deadline is a deadline.
Yeah.
But you just try to get the material as fast as you can get it and be proactive in getting the things that you need, and don't let your clients drag their own feet on getting you what you need. Like, you know your deadline, you might have to make some calls and be like, hey, I really need to get this so I can, you know, get it prepped and stuff. So I can get to work. Don't be sending it to me like the morning of your mastering meeting.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. And also having a good plan about the mastering stage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I just had an album to mix not too long ago, and they gave it to me. I had, I think, 48 hours. And I said, well, you know what? I'm not going to sleep for the next 48 hours. I'm going to attack this, like you said, as quick as I can. But then I'm going to send it off to, you know, in that case, it was Dave Kutch. It's incredible. And he was kind of like the safety net, just in case, you know? But, yeah, you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, Dave's a big, dangerous guy and hooked up his lathe recently, so he's cutting vinyl over there, what I understand. It's cool. Hey, so Brian B asks, when ready to mix before going into the summing box, does anyone run their stems into the line-in on their hardware mic pre's to get more copper on the signal like a console? So do you run through any outboard before you hit the summing box? I can certainly answer that too.
Yeah, you can. I've been running the drums certain songs through not through the mic pre, but the lining of some leaves, and just for flavor, see what happens. But I mean, you can. That's the beauty of summing. Hello, I mean, you go once you're in the analog domain, man. You can plug in pieces of gear, see what works. Try this, try that. I mean, why not, man? My answer is why not? If it works.
No, absolutely. I mean, part of the reason that you've got transformer and paralimit and harmonics in the box is so you can treat things there and print is what a lot of folks do, so that they want to use it in a couple different places. They could print it and then bring it back. But certainly, in a perfect world, like in my system, all the inputs and outputs of the summing box is in a patch bay, so you could hit anything you want, anytime you want. Treat it through anything outboard, whether it's going through an input on going through a mic input. The thing is just, it's super sensitive, it's super hot, so you're going to overload it real fast. When you overload a transformer, it overloads very fast. We're just sending voltage into a transformer, so you send a little bit of voltage, it's pretty good, and very quick it turns into it sounds pretty bad. So you just have to be super careful. So like you said, going line input would certainly be a safer bet. I'll have to do that. Okay, Brendan Bridwell asks, I got a question for you. What about acoustic treatments? What acoustic treatments can you do to your home studio space without breaking the bank or other than foam panels? Well, because we all know that foam doesn't actually work. So what? Yeah. Any creative suggestions? I guess he's looking for out there.
Check it out. Nice seeing. Yeah, the cloud is working.
I have a phone. I guess what's the Corning? Corning 402?
Yeah, that one. Owens Corning.
What's
the 701? There's a 701.
There's a bunch of it in those two right there.
Yeah.
Nice. There's many things you can pull up, and you build your wooden frame, put that rock wool, I think they call it. Owens Corning. It's rock wool, right?
Well, there's rock wool, and then the Owens Corning is the actual 2x4. Yeah, it's a 2-inch thick, and those do work. If you put a bunch like you have there.
Yeah, there's a lot of information out there today that we didn't used to have, but certainly also what I recommend is people think about using stuff that's non-toxic, because old days, all we used a lot of R19 and things like that. It's all fiberglass, and you're thinking about a studio, you got a singer breathing, you got a drummer, working hard. That stuff's falling out of the ceiling. It's killing people. So you can use stuff like recycled Levi's now with the same R factor, and it's about the same price. So it's interesting what green materials they have to work with. But yeah, back to Brendan. I would say there's great stuff out there to read about how you can DIY stuff yourself now. Back when I built my first studio in 1991. It was like 21 or something, and I made every possible mistake you could make, and there was no interwebs. So it was, I built, the control room was small enough that you would actually run out of oxygen because it was sealed, so you'd pass out. I built the door so thick that you actually couldn't open it or close it. We had to cut the door in half to make two out of it. I put my patch bay in there, soldered it upside down and backwards. I put SMPTE in the patch bay. You can make every mistake you possibly can. But today you can actually, get a lot of good data out there. Oh, he says, I have another question. Maybe a little better. I've been struggling on really bringing out my spatial imagery in recent mixes. What are y'all's go-to process for placing sounds? I think that's interesting because it talks about, if you don't start with space, you're not going to have it to use. But
another thing is, if you've got a lot of things fighting for that space, you run out of it really fast. So it's kind of like the old, if everything's fighting to be the loudest thing, nothing is the loudest thing. The same can be said for width. Like, if everything is fighting to be wide, nothing is wide.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you got to kind of pick your spots where you want that width. You don't want to just put an imager on your whole mix and then expect it to just open up. Like maybe just do your string bus or something, or
Yep.
your backgrounds, or
Mm-hmm.
the things that are already kind of pushing wide.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe use like a ozone kind of
Yep.
imager thing on that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just on those buses instead
Exactly.
of like trying to do your whole mix like that.
Oh, exactly. And having your reverb
I think
game,
it's a
yeah, the reverb game is important because if a little reverb goes a long way, but like Chris is saying, it's the contrast. What's dry and what's wet, what's wide and what's narrow. It's that particular contrast that makes it appear big and sound pleasing. But like you said, if everything's too wide, if everything's too wet, you're not gonna have that contrast, and therefore you're not gonna have what you're looking for, which is that the spatial effect to place your instruments within the stereo pen field.
I think of it like looking out a window, right? If you're D to A and your monitor controller can't tell you what's happening, it's kind of like looking out, just sort of looking out the window. It's a little bit dirty, and you see, hey, there's outside, and maybe there's some trees. And then, if you open up the window a little bit more, you're like, oh, look, there's a cow down in front of the tree, right? So now you're getting some depth of field. And then you sort of open the window all the way and you look around and you've got this whole scene left and right out there where you see like hills and there's a swimming pool down there, a lot of people having a good time. There's the cow up on the hill. There's some clouds over here. So I think it's important to think in terms of, left and right, then front and back, and then slots, as Dave Isaac calls it, high, mid, low. So you're mixing in those frequency bands, physical position this way, physical position forward and backwards. So, but if you can't hear if your monitor controller's lying to you, you don't know where to put it.
Yeah, and that's why I keep my COM2 just for monitoring, because once I engage that just for monitoring, everything changed for me. I was like, oh my gosh, I need that picture, that big picture, so I can see everything. And it stayed there ever since.
If I could go back to the small room mix tips, because I think those are helpful to a lot of people like using this. To use a small room, but headphones, of course.
Yeah.
But really study what your monitors sound like and what other songs sound like at the volume level right before your room goes to shit.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a level that you're going to hit where like you're exciting all the nodes, and then like that's when it starts to get real gray. Like you really got to like keep your levels down. Study what things sound like at that level. Another good trick, if you want to listen a little bit louder, like you don't always have to be sitting in front of your speakers.
Exactly.
Hit play.
Exactly. Walk around
and walk away
and
see what it sounds like down the hall.
It's a great trick.
Close the door. See what it sounds like coming through the door.
True. All of a sudden you hear things like, whoa, why's my vocal so dull?
Right.
So I gotta push it
you can even like cover your ears.
True.
Like, that's another trick.
True. You know who mixes with those covers, what do you call those earbud things inside to protect your. So a friend of mine was signed, is an artist, Terminology. He was signed to Afrojack, that big time international superstar EDM producer. Well, he will put those in his ears and then put the headphones on top and mix his records like that.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Shoot, and it worked.
Whatever you learn, man. The mind is an amazing thing. It can adapt. Look, NS10s were popular for so long. There's a reason we can adapt to just about anything if we can survive those. So we got people swearing by them that are used to them. So, okay, another question. Andrew Shaw says, most surprising features. Well, the most surprising feature on one of your pieces of dangerous gear.
Man, only one feature? What is yours? Because I gotta pick mine.
Because I have less gear than so I'm gonna say clip guard and the transformer.
Those are pretty badass. My gosh. I gotta say, to me, if I don't know if I can call this a feature, but the conversion is nothing like in my mind. That feature, the actual conversion aspect of it is insane.
I mean, that's why that's another reason I wanted to leave the box. I don't want the converter just to sound good on my speakers. I want to record the output of it.
Yes, exactly.
And try to capture it somehow.
Exactly.
Put the lightning on the
Capture
bottom.
what you're hearing.
Yeah.
Killer. All right. Well, I'm gonna. We're hitting the hour here, so I think we should call it a wrap. I want to thank both you gentlemen for imparting your insight and wisdom to everybody out there. It's fun. This will live in infamy out there on the interwebs. So questions will probably continue to aggregate up on there. I want to put a plug in for our next event. It's next Friday, June 19th, with Richard Devine, and we are in pursuit of the Holy Grail. And so come join us for that one as well. So thank you very much. Goodbye now, denizens of the audio empire, and until next week. Platinum Legacy signs off. I will see you then. Happy Friday. Go crush it.
Las cervezas que se pongan bien traviesas en las piernas y que bailen con los manes. Olvidarnos de las penas por echando lo que quiero es vacilar. Con un ritmo bien brutal producido por empezó la fiesta, nos vamos para la playa. Hasta que amanezca llegó el fin de semana. Seguimos la fiesta, nos vamos para el jacuzzi. Después del after party nos espera el cuchi. Yo digo dale, dale, suélale el taqui taqui. Pa' que se pongan cachondosos con el tuki tuki. Pa' que flote la nota y se ponga bien friki. Y se tire la tela para ver su chuchi. Hola, Mr. DJ, esta fiesta está apagada, vamos a darle lo que piden. Party y alboroto, música era activa, era bailoteo y trago loco. Olvidarnos de las penas por echando lo que quiero es vacilar. Que llegó la Sheila King, la dura de Trio Fight. Boom, chacalaca, vengo con abracadabra, con un flow bien al garete, la baby que te arrebata. Puerto Rican, mamacita rica, levantando mi bandera bien solita, chica.